Hello there and welcome to this video where we delve into the answer to the question, how does poor metacognition hurt academic success? Metacognition is the ability to think about your own thinking. So we'll talk about how that will impact your ability to do well, academically speaking. First part of this video, we're going to be defining metacognition. We'll talk about what it is and what we mean by that term. Secondly, we'll be talking about its impact on your learning strategies and the results that you get. Third, we'll discuss motivation and metacognition's role in motivation. And then we're going to be talking about how to improve metacognitive skill sets or skills to have. And then lastly, we're going to look at a couple case studies on how metacognition impacted academic success. We talk about metacognition, we're really talking about thinking about your own thinking. It's understanding what you are doing internally while you're thinking and learning. What's your brain doing? That's kind of what we're referring to when we're talking about metacognition. There's kind of two aspects to it I want to touch upon. The first is really understanding that very process. It's understanding the questions you're asking. It's understanding how your brain is memorizing things. It's really kind of delving into what you're doing internally to learn, to study, to make connections. The second part is understanding how to regulate that, which really is essentially talking about the planning aspect, how you go about trying to organize yourself and plan your whole learning and your whole study habits and all that kind of aspect is that second part of metacognition, right? So you need to understand what's going on inside your brain, and then you need to understand how to begin to take control of that, which is kind of that second piece of this. One of the challenges with poor metacognitive skills is that you overestimate how well you understand something. So you think you've really got it, but you don't, and that becomes clear to the people who are assessing you in some way to find out how well you understand something. So that is a metacognitive issue that you overestimate your own ability to understand specific material. Another aspect is really understanding the studying process and how you're going about learning and to evaluate your processes. So you'll study typically passively, right? So you'll just review your notes, yeah, I've got this kind of thing. But you can't really step back to evaluate that, oh, that worked for me or that didn't work for me. So you can't really begin to make adjustments in how you go about studying and learning material. And you tend not to do active learning. You don't tend to go over this, practice it, rehearse it. You don't do some of those other steps if you have poor metacognitive skills. So when you think about not being able to really evaluate and look at other strategies that you could use and merge strategies, adjust strategies, that is all an example of somebody with poor metacognitive skills, and they tend to not do as well academically. So when kids who have poor metacognition and they don't see improvement, they kind of get stuck because they can't really think about their thinking, make those adjustments with those strategies, and therefore they don't do as well. They aren't as motivated, right? We don't tend to be highly motivated to do things we aren't doing well in. This is where a growth mindset comes in, right? Where that curiosity and that desire to persevere, where you really want to figure things out. When you begin to think about your thinking in order to figure things out, you can begin to see the connection between metacognitive skills and the growth mindset, because that growth mindset is, oh boy, how can I do this better? What happened here? How did I get this wrong? They're asking different questions. They're thinking about their thinking. That leads them to be able to be more perseverant. That leads to more motivation, and it becomes a success loop built in. While poor metacognition doesn't lead to that success loop, you tend to kind of give up. So you can definitely see that connection between that growth mindset and those metacognitive skills. self-reflection is a key way people can begin to develop metacognitive skills. When you kind of step back, ask yourself different questions. What went well? What went wrong? How did I do that? How did that make me feel? How did I get a wrong answer there? When you start thinking about the process that you went through, right? So you're asking questions that are process-oriented. That's going to help you begin to improve, to break down exactly where mistakes were made, to analyze things differently and maybe even better. When you ask why questions, you're looking at your motivation and whether that may have influenced it. So the whole process of learning and reflecting, actually answering those questions, writing them down, journaling is a powerful thing, that develops some of those skills. You ask yourself strategies, right? What did my brain go through when I did this? What was the thing I first thought of, first said to myself, right? When you break down what you were actually doing internally, that's kind of the strategy that we're talking about, right? There's just a tote model of strategy. So there's a trigger and you operate. You go internal. You think about what those actual thought processes were. Yep, I said this to myself, I visualized this, then I said this to myself, and then I wrote this answer down, right? So you were going through an operation, and you were testing it inside, maybe visually, maybe auditorily, and then you're exiting and you're writing your answer down, you're giving your explanation, whatever the case may be. When you begin to break down those strategies and try to understand those strategies, you are developing metacognitive skills. So all of those things, from strategies to your motivation, to the questions you're asking, the self-reflection, are really the essential ways that you're going to improve those skills. For a real life example, we're going to look at a case study with Alex. And Alex didn't do well academically. So some of the patterns that Alex did, and this was particularly in math and science, but in the other areas as well. For example, in math, the problems for homework they would have, he'd kind of rush through them, wouldn't really double check to see whether he got them right. So he's oftentimes repeating mistakes. He's setting up these neurological pathways that aren't reinforcing correct problem-solving techniques or anything of that sort. He thinks he gets it, and then when he gets grades back, tests back, homework things back, what have you, and he sees the number he got wrong, he gets deflated emotionally because he thought he got it. Geez, I'm sure I had this right. And he clearly didn't. So that kind of cycles through, right? So he's not really motivated to try to figure out why he got things wrong, and he just kind of rushes through homework again. No, I got it this time. I think I got it this time. And that kind of cycle, and he gets more deflated, doesn't want to spend the time because it's just giving him negative feelings. That's poor metacognition and influences his lack of academic success. If he were able to step back and begin to analyze and ask different questions about why he got things wrong, how he got it wrong, looking at those grades, oh, I got this, oh, I see what I did. Doing that sort of self-reflection, that process and that thinking would improve those skills, help him understand material better, and improve his academic success. I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Check out the other videos. We're adding more all the time. You can find my podcasts. You might be interested in those podcasts. And you might be particularly interested in the video, what is the meaning of academic success? So check that video out today.